Time for a very special edition of Sunday No Huddle with Robert Rosenthal of IlliniBoard.com. Once again, when the clock hit 0 yesterday, you were front of mind for me. What are some of your initial takeaways from the win?
I mean, you know, you say special win. It's okay. I'm 51 years old. I've personally watched Illinois beat Michigan once in person. You know, it's happened on the road several times, but at home it's 83 and 09. So, you know, in the years to come, in 2037, I will just casually mention 2024 as that game. You know, it's that kind of game that everyone will remember. When I talk about Michigan 2000, everybody thinks about, oh, that game, Illinois lost late, had the lead, the 2 fumble calls, the Big Ten apologized on Monday for missing both fumble calls. You know, all of that stuff is just referenced when someone says 2000 Michigan. And for now, you know, in 20 years, people will say, oh yeah, 2024 Michigan, you remember that game, and everyone will remember where they were. It's that kind of game.
Right. The defensive turnaround from Purdue to yesterday's game was like day and night, honestly. What was it that you really think shut down this Michigan run game that we've been hearing about since before last week?
I'm still fascinated in the Purdue game of how Ryan Walters took over play calling for the offense because he knows Aaron Henry so well. And it's like, oh, I know he'll do this and then I'll do this. And then he'll probably do this, which I'll do this. And he won that chess match. Let's just say he absolutely dominated that chess match. This one was just the opposite.
Right.
You know, they were throwing different packages at Michigan, you know, to stop what they were doing, and everything was working. And when Michigan did put a drive together, Illinois did what Illinois has been doing all season, which is toughen up in the red zone, force field goal attempts instead of giving up touchdowns, block some field goal attempts, or, you know, an interception at the 3-yard line or whatever it was. That helps too. So, you know, that's a recipe for a lot of success, that you limit their yards. When you do give up drives, you make your biggest plays when they're in the red zone, and that's how you only allow 7.
Yeah, we got back here last night, and I had forgotten that Illinois blocked a Michigan field goal. I had just forgotten because so much happened. And that was such a small but such an important part of the game. But on the offense, it was actually a light day for Luke Altmaier. 80 yards passing, less than 50 rushing. Does that give you confidence that this team can work not without him, but when he's not putting up insane numbers?
Yeah, I mean, Michigan was number 3 nationally in rushing defense coming into this game. They had shut down some solid rushing offenses. Illinois coming into this game was something like 87th best rushing offense. You know, everybody was expecting the pass. If you would have told me, you know, say I don't watch the game and you just say Luke Altmaier's going to go 9 for 18 for 80 yards, what do you think the final score is going to be? I'm going to say Michigan by 20 at least. You know, everybody expected that was the thing they'd have to do. And instead they did it on around 170, 180 yards on the ground, and, you know, chewed up clock and put together, you know, sustained drives to keep the defense fresh. All the formula that Bielema puts together, everything was working, and, you know, worked to perfection in a 21-7 win.
Yeah, from one big game week to another, Illinois is taking on the number 1 team in the country this Saturday in Oregon and on the road. What stands out to you as some of the keys to this matchup and some of the headlines for the week?
You kind of hope that Oregon, you know, their last home game, they had Ohio State there. They were, you know, they were up for it. Game day was in town. It was this great game that came down to the wire. You kind of hope for that letdown game of, you know, they played Purdue on Friday, and that was obviously, you know, Purdue, except for the Illinois game, isn't that good. So you hope that there's some confidence there of like, hey, last time at home we were fine. It's going to take that because, look, this is the number 1 team in the country. You know, the hope probably comes from how Oregon started the season when they're playing Idaho and they're only up like 7 in the 4th quarter and they're playing this FCS team. You know, Oregon has some faults. It seems like every college football team this year has some faults. There's no one just saying we are clearly the number 1 team. So in a season like that, you kind of hope that when you're the next team to play number 1, it's like, well, let's expose that they have some flaws as well. So that's the job for the coaching staff this week is find those Oregon flaws.
It's hard to believe that on October 20th, we're saying that Illinois is 6-1, especially after last week we stood right here and said this team could very likely not be 5-1.
Yes.
So how much confidence does that give you heading into a game like this, which is going to be probably your biggest challenge yet?
Definitely.
Does that give you like some padding?
Yes. I mean, I said, as far as I call them gravy games, or just say house money or whatever. Penn State was like that. This one is even more. You're playing number one on the road, so no one really beats number one on the road, right? Like that's just something that very, very rarely happens. If you're number one team in the country, you're going to win your home games. So with that and with the cushion built by a 6-1 start, I can't see any scenario where, as an Illinois fan, I'm upset after a loss on Saturday.
Right.
The ceiling is you beat the number one team in the country and move clearly into the top 10, and the floor is you can lose to Oregon, win out in November against 4 games where you'll be favored and go 10-2. I mean, that's the, so it's this is a gravy game. If of all games, I can't remember anything like this where a win is one of the greatest wins in school history, and a loss doesn't really alter your season all that much.
I agree. And even so, you look at potentially dropping Oregon and then these next 4 games, you can still drop one of those games and be 9-3.
Yes.
I mean, fans would have clamored for a 9-3 season from this team back in July.
Yes.
It's incredible.
Yes. I mean, 9 regular season wins in my lifetime. It's 2007, 2001, 1989, 1983, 4 times in my lifetime.
And only 2 of those are in my lifetime.
Yeah, so, we're talking, and the crazy thing, I mean, we have to acknowledge this. In these first 8 games, we know what's happened to Kansas. They fell apart after they were ranked.
Sure.
But in these first 8 games, 5 of the teams have been ranked. If Illinois were to go 7-1 against that chunk of the schedule, everybody talked before the season, those 8 games, 5 ranked teams, that's going to be tough. Last 4 games, no ranked teams, probably gets a little easier. That changes the whole perspective on the entire season. So, even with a loss, if you're going, you're only losing 2 of those 5 games against ranked teams, that's an incredible start. It's it's mind-blowing to me.
Yeah. Last one for you. You've kind of hinted at this throughout our conversation, but as we close the chapter on Centennial Weekend, which was just a beautiful weekend. Every time I saw Josh Whitman this weekend, I just beamed, because knowing how hard he worked for this and knowing how much he's given to this program, it just makes me so happy. So does this win have the chance to go down as an all-timer for Illinois fans and for the program?
I mean, my first thought is making it personal. Of the tailgate, the game, the weather, the opponent. Like, we were all talking late last night at the tailgate of can we top this? Like, sure, Illinois built a program, and someday game day is in town and it's number 4 Ohio State, number 7 Illinois, or something like that. Yes, that would top it. But in trying to think back to, especially since it's Michigan and all the pain against Michigan, I listed them here last week, 94, 2000, 2007, all these games that were close and Illinois could not pull them out. For that to then shift and, maybe clear that out of the memory banks and replace it with this golden memory here, it's hard to think that it could be beat, And it also makes me think of this. The first time I interviewed Josh Whitman, which was a few days after he was hired, he did a media thing where he came to St. Louis, he went to Chicago. In St. Louis, I got to sit with him for half hour or something like that and just ask him about the program and this type of thing. He mentioned the 2000 Michigan game as something he remembers, his quote, every day. He keeps his helmet there in his office, his playing helmet. When he sees that helmet, he thinks of the 2000 Michigan game, had the lead, lost it late, still bothers him. I have to think that this moment for him after the game is some of that going away. It's some of that being replaced with a new memory. That's what Saturday meant. This was a big moment for the program. It was a big moment for Coach Bielema. It was a big moment for Illinois fans, because this brought all of those memories, put them to bed a little bit, and started an arrow directed toward a new path for Illinois football that these fans haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah. Robert, safe travels this week.
Thank you.
No Sunday No Huddle next week, as Robert will still be in Oregon.
I will.
Hopefully bringing some good mojo to this big win. Still look forward to hearing your thoughts. Thank you so much for joining us once again.
All right, thanks.